Good. Welcome, everybody. We'll call the meeting to order. We'll start out. We acknowledge that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. I just wanted to send, we had regrets there from Councillor Lee, as well as I was at a meeting yesterday with Sergeant Andrew Clark, and he informed me that he wouldn't be able to be here today. We do have Sergeant Jarrett McDonald with us today and Sergeant Bisalt with us, as well as a couple of citizen reps, Manson Glode and George Pugsley. Section 2, administrative and procedural issues, approval of the agenda. If we don't have any additions or changes to it, we'll look to approve the agenda as presented. First by Councillor Lockhart and seconded by Councillor Strong. Sorry. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carried. Declaration of conflict of interest. As per our Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, members are required to declare a conflict of interest to any discussion on the matter. 2.3, approval of minutes. Recommended motion that the minutes of the May 14th, 2025 regular Police Advisory Board meeting be approved. Look for a mover. Moved by Councillor McCormick, second by Councillor Fromm. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carried. Section 3, business issues. There are no business issues. Section 4 is operational reports, and we have 2 reports in your package, quarter 2 and quarter 3. We will have an update on it. We'll just have the update on quarter 3. And is there a question? So, do we have another package? Okay.
Peter's got one.
Peter has one.
There we go.
Sorry, I knew I had. There's that one.
Sorry about that. So as I mentioned, we have Sergeant Jarrett McDonald and Sergeant Stuart Bisalt with us, and we all know Jarrett, but I think this is the first time for most of us, so if you want to do a quick introduction before we get started, I'd appreciate that, just so everybody knows who you are.
Sure. Stuart Bisalt. I'm coming from Bible Hill, where I spent the last 11 years. So I officially start January 5th, and looking forward to it. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I guess if you're gonna lead us, Jared, in the third quarter report.
Yeah. So
Yep.
if I can. So we have the second and third quarter reports to go. What we'll do is I'll look at the third quarter here, and that would be a year-to-date report. So whatever's I'm going to talk about is both inclusive of quarter 2 and quarter 3. So I'll just talk about some stats, and then I'll go through, highlight some the more serious files, just on a brief overview. A lot of them you've probably heard about through the media and other platforms. So I'll touch on them, but I won't get too deep into them.
The third quarter, for those who are following along, sorry to interrupt, Jarrett, page 28, I think, in councils or in the committee's package.
So year to date so far is what we're seeing is a lot of property crimes have been down, have fallen. In fact, approximately 150 calls year to date, and that would include the thefts, break and enters, car thefts, mischiefs, damage to properties. They've all, we've seen them on downward trend. A couple of the most notable ones are the break and enters. This time last year we had 99, and so far this year 65. So that can be attributed to targeting specific individuals and continual monitoring of others. So in saying that, there's 3 or 4 prolific offenders that are in custody, and whenever we see them get out of incarceration, we'll ride the tide until we get them again. Mischief, so those are general damages to properties and whatnot. My neighbor was over, broke the window of my house, that kind of thing. That's been, so this time last year it was at 235, and right now we're sitting at 169. So again, quite a reduction there in about 70 calls less for the mischief under $5,000. If you're looking for what I'm saying here, this is in my report. This year, the third quarter, these reports that you have in front of you are Parsboro, Pugwash, Spring Hill, Amherst, and Oxford. What I'm referring to is the county as a whole, if that works for everyone, instead of, if you have specific questions about specific locations, I have all that information as well. But if you're in agreement,
Yep.
I won't run through every detachment, I'll run through the county as a whole, and if anybody has any questions, specific questions, I'm open to answer those, and I have the information for specific locations. So like I said, the property crime's down. The person's crimes are trending upwards. And there's a couple notable ones. Assaults are up about 24 calls over last year. So 96 we had last year, and we're up to 120 now. So threats, 105 this time last year. We're sitting at 150 now. So that's 45 more. And what we see is a bad neighbor dispute, a bad breakup. For one person to make 20 calls is pretty easy to explain, or pretty easy. We'll see those increases in the numbers through one or two couples or friends or what have you.
Ask a question?
Yep.
So, Jared, just to make sure we all understand, so these are occurrences and complaints and might result in a charge, might not result in a charge. So you might have the situation you described. You might have 20 calls that would be 20 complaints or occurrences that might result in a charge and might not. Correct? Okay.
Correct, yeah. And we see that a lot in neighbor disputes. Like uttering threats, for example. Neighbor A has a complaint about neighbor B. Neighbor B has a complaint about neighbor A, and they're calling on one another, and there's no threats. It's just a neighbor dispute. So.
Sometimes you get them calling at the same time. Dispatchers are taking calls from them at the same time.
And a lot of that has to do with property lines and, division of property.
It's sorry to interrupt again, but just trying to just to interpret it, it's probably also fair to say in a municipality with, we'll call it sparse population, that one or two files with multiple calls can skew the numbers pretty significantly on, the buckets that they fall into. Is that fair to say as well?
Very much so.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
So another one that I was just talking about, the increases in files, so utter threats, assaults, and then also sex assaults and those associated files. This time last year we had 17. Now, currently, we have 25. We'll get into that in a few minutes. Just there's one specific case that, with multiple occurrences, that kind of draw up those numbers. So other things we've seen a downward trend in are suspicious people. So that's the calls on people. We have somebody see somebody walking through their yard during the day, don't know who they are. Oftentimes the police get there, the person's not identified. You know, there was an elderly gentleman walking, cutting through our yard. I've never seen him before, that kind of thing. We categorize that or score that as a suspicious person, and there's less of those being reported right now. So break and enters, as I mentioned, the property crimes, break and enter specific are down 34. The mischiefs are down 66. The theft from vehicles, so the actual entering a vehicle and stealing, are down 15, and theft under 5,000 are down 23 from this time last year. Any questions on numbers or anything specific to your area or district?
Yeah, Councillor Lockhart.
Is that the number or the percentage?
That's the number.
Okay,
That's
thank
the
you.
number,
That's-
yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
Councillor McCormick?
Thank you. What is it looking like for Mental Health Act and also to wellness checks? Are they increased or decreased?
Increased.
Increased.
They're quite, actually, I'm glad to ask that. I don't have the exact numbers for mental health acts here in front of me. Actually, I do. So, year to date, this time last year, there was 151. Currently, 174. So we're up about, 23 calls or so, which may not seem like a whole lot, but when you think, okay, 2 officers are going to that one call, sometimes they have to go to the hospital, it can turn into a 4, 5, 6 hour call. So times 24 calls, it's those numbers, or hours, work hours get pretty high.
Would many of them be repeat?
Yeah, they are. There's quite a number repeat. Stu is trained. I'm trained as well with the crisis intervention team. And what we're trying to do, we have a number of members now trained where we, before everyone worked in silos. The health authority worked in a silo, we worked in a silo. But whenever we're trained, we can, I can refer people to the crisis intervention team, which sometimes speeds them up. They're available to take our calls until 10 p.m., which is important because whenever we're outside somebody's house with somebody in the back seat, thinking, we're going to have to go to the hospital and wait here for 6, 8, 10 hours with this person, a call to that intervention team can alleviate that sometimes, where they can communicate with the person that's experiencing the distress or the episode and make an appointment for the next day, that kind of thing. So they aren't.
It also is an information sharing system, right? So you can go to one of these calls where you're dealing with a repeat mental health offender, and possibly they, they've just received treatment. Whereas before, if you're asking them, they won't respond. But we can call the hospital, and we can speak with the crisis team, and they can give us up to date where their treatment plan is. And maybe it's not in their best interest to go to the hospital again because they just got out this morning, and there's nothing really has changed, right? But if you didn't have that access, you would, like you said, go and possibly spend the next rest of your shift at the hospital, right? So it's a step in the right direction.
And that's So there's a Cumberland, it's a northern zone, we belong to a northern zone, project, I guess, for lack of better words, with this crisis intervention team. So it is important in saving a lot of man hours sitting at the hospital.
It also gives us the opportunity to let them know, because we can call them and kind of give them updates on status where the doctor might not be privy to that information otherwise. So they're making notes on the file so that they can say to the doctor, well, the police have dealt with this person, 3 times this week. Like, I'll speak to Colchester because that's where I'm from, but, we have somebody that calls every 3 days and they're going to the hospital every 3 days, right? So, trying to deal with that. We also have the critical case analysis, where we're trying to sit down and come up with as a whole system, as opposed to, like you said, the everybody on their own doing their own thing, where you're trying to facilitate more of a group approach to just relying on policing or the hospital to deal with the problem, right?
Thank you. Any other, yep, Councilor Hotelling.
Thank you, Chair. Are we able to get the full county numbers in the next report when we get it? Is that something we can?
Yeah, unfortunately not. It's a protected A document. I wish, and we always say this, but unfortunately not.
Okay.
It's developed down headquarters.
So just to follow up to that, if I could, because I kind of had the same question, Jarrett, and the segmented information is here by, we'll call it detachment, I'm not sure if you call them detachments anymore, but by area, Oxford, Parsbro, and all of the information is here. We could just collate that information, couldn't we, and provide it? I guess it's more informative if we're going to have the conversation at a higher level to be able to actually follow along.
Right.
And I think, and so if you're not able to provide that, if your office isn't, maybe we can talk about how we can help. And I think the other point to make there is that Councilor Lockhart and I were talking earlier before the meeting about conversation we had with you and Staff Sergeant Clark earlier this week about some stats and the difference between 1 year and the next year to date. I think it would be helpful for comparative purposes and for that discussion to have that year to date this year, year to date last year. So if you folks aren't able to provide it in the first instance, we're happy to sit down and figure out how we can collate the information that you can give us so that it's a little bit more, not meaningful, but a little more obvious when it's on everybody's desk. So we're happy to help out there if we can, so.
Yeah, and I don't know where it becomes information to protected A document.
Yep,
I don't know
okay.
if it's because it looks back 5 years or that's beyond me.
Yeah, so maybe
look into it.
between now and the next meeting, maybe we can have a chat about how we get there, and we're happy to help, so.
Yeah, certainly. And I think just with where it's including for this meeting, where it's including 2 quarters, it makes it a little difficult.
Yep, go ahead.
Are you done with the stats?
I am, unless there's any further questions specifically to your area, or?
I have one if council's done with their questions. So, and it's just in general. So, a few questions just to help folks understanding. I think I know the answer to these questions, but I'm going to ask them. So, municipality of the County of Cumberland pays for 27.3 officers, and Oxford pays for 0.7, I think. So, or maybe 1.7. But these stats cover the whole area, the whole county, including Oxford and the Amherst detachment, which isn't, Amherst has their own police department. We all understand that. But it doesn't include, correct me if I'm wrong, the highway stats. So for traffic, is that correct?
Correct.
So traffic is separate and apart. So there are some traffic files included in your report here, but these would be traffic files captured either by a phone call to the detachment or by a member that isn't traffic making a traffic
Correct.
stop. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And I just want to draw as well from the meeting we had the other night in Parsboro. It was a great meeting. We had 15 or 20 people out with members of the business community and some nonprofit organizations there. And what we heard wasn't uncommon, what we would hear at a meeting like that anywhere else. But what we did hear was some complaints, and I say complaints in a positive way, some complaints about speeding and traffic offenses. And we heard complaints about vandalism and mischief. And through that conversation, it became obvious that people weren't actually picking up the phone and calling either the non-emergency number or 911 or whatever was appropriate in that instance. Can you just talk a little bit about the importance of those phone calls in how you shape enforcement and how it impacts statistics and how we, you know, are able to speak intelligently about to the community about, how you can actually enforce the law when you actually know that stuff is happening. Can you just talk a little bit
That's
about
right.
that?
And I'll draw us back to
Yeah, thank you.
Parsboro, if you will.
Yeah.
I think the complaint was a large number of speeders on East and West Avenue there. People on ATVs traveling up and down there at high speeds, doing catwalks, and then cars, and a lot of the people were convinced that it was the police kind of not doing anything. They, weren't responsive to their complaints. I think maybe not the exact words, but a common theme was, my neighbor's called 5 times, and she never hears anything back. Well, we have statistics that showed that, in fact, I think for that speeding, for example, I think we had 3 calls year to date on speeding in Parsboro. So we just weren't sure. Andrew and I, who were in Parsboro at the meeting, were kind of thinking initially, like, oh, geez, we're missing the ball on this. And then whenever the statistics came out, we could see that the conversations between people, maybe they're leading one another on to believe that they are calling police or, being proactive and making complaints when in fact that wasn't always happening. And without the police knowing, then we can't take action. So to get to the importance of making a complaint to the police, every time you call 911 or the detachment, whether it's an emergency or it's non-emergency, if you have a complaint, it's a file's created. Once a file's created, it's scored. So if somebody's reporting a theft, the detachment assistant at the detachment scores that as a theft, and that generates then a statistic creates a file, which in turn creates a statistic in the database, which we draw from. So without getting information, we only know what we know, and we can only tell what we have, statistics on. It's so to go back to, let's talk about speed enforcement. Oftentimes people say people are speeding down this road so often. Our community is, it's unsafe, and then we pick up the statistics for that, and we see 3, 4, 5 complaints for that area. What we need people to do is, whenever they see somebody speeding, it may not seem important to them because that person's going to be long gone, and you might only know that it was a blue car. If they call in and say it's a blue car, then we can look and see, look at the file, look at the area, and if we see a blue car speeding there 10 times in the last week or the last 2 weeks, we can kind of generalize or figure out what blue car that is and who it belongs to.
So, if I could, so thank you for that. The point being, and you've made it well, is that it doesn't do much good to talk to your neighbor about the issue. It does some good to talk to your municipal councilor or a staff member about it, but it does most good for all kinds of reasons, response, statistics, how enforcement is shaped, if you actually call the RCMP emergency or non-emergency line, depending on what's going on, because A, the response gets made, and B, the statistic gets recorded, and that shapes enforcement. Is that fair?
That's correct, and you can see the trends.
And so I don't want to monopolize the conversation, but what we've done at the municipality in the last couple of months, is we had one, we've acquired a second digital speed sign. Everybody loves to see the digital speed sign in their neighborhood because it does create a deterrence, but it also captures data when it's in place about number of occurrences, statistics on speed, and how many folks were above a certain speed and below a certain speed, and time of day to be able to shape enforcement. And so we've got a little bit of a protocol in place now that we've been able to acquire the second sign, and that is our staff respond to the RCMP's request to place a sign. So, the long story short, very long story short, sorry, I apologize for this, is if you don't call the RCMP, we won't be able to place that sign in your neighborhood because they won't have the statistics to be able to support, hey Greg, could you place that sign? We're getting a lot of complaints on pick a street in pick a community. So, bottom line is, if you see something happening, call the RCMP. And particularly if it's traffic and speeding, which is a common complaint, call the RCMP because it generates the stat. And if it really is a big problem, and it really is occurring a lot, we do have an extra tool to be able to kind of help out a little bit. Is that fair?
Perfectly said.
Thank you.
Thank you. So our CAO's plea was to hopefully, if there's people out there watching, that they will, but also for our counselors to pass on to complaints that they get, to try to get people to make that call. Councillor Strong.
Another takeaway from the meeting in Parsbro is that you, or whomever is calling the RCMP, have to be willing to give their name, own it. If you're going to make a complaint, you have to be able to own it and follow up, and they can't do anything just on a hunch. So you have to be able to do that, and that's what a lot of people don't understand. They just can't, take the information and run with it. You have to be there, and if you're going to stand up for your beliefs and what you think is right, then that'll help them a lot more than just getting a phone call from anonymous.
We do take anonymous complaints, but to go back and charge anybody after the fact is impossible, because we need the witness, right?
Correct.
So,
Thank you.
Councillor Redmond.
Do I go through the chair, or? Okay. Wentworth I'm getting a lot of complaints by the rec center, fire hall, and the learning center. And I'm wondering if I can put a request in to have, it was set up there not too long ago by the Baptist church. But we're having a lot of issues by the learning center, the rec center, and the fire hall.
So I'm going to take that question, Your Worship, or Mr. Chair, if that's okay. So, reference the earlier conversation and reference conversations we've had previously. Folks need to call the RCMP. We aren't taking requests from individual districts or from municipal councilors or others for the sign. We're doing completely on the data with the RCMP. So if we're getting a lot of complaints, my advice to you is to have those folks call the RCMP so the occurrence is recorded, and they can say, wow, there's a lot of complaints in Wentworth these days. We better get that sign down there. So that's the
But you
conclusion.
said for them to call the counselor, so these people have called me, so I am passing on their information and the areas that are of
No,
concern.
so respectfully, I'll disagree. What I said was that they should call the RCMP so that the occurrence gets generated and the statistic is captured, and they can look at what the trends are and place the sign. Thank you.
and we do get calls, and I think that's what we have to do. We have to get them to make the call to the RCMP. So,
I just, like, a lot of times you get a lot of people that are like, they don't wanna bother the RCMP, or they don't, you know, they're like, oh, it's not that important that I don't wanna bother the police, but what I always tell people is I'd rather show up and it be nothing than not be advised of it at all, you know, like, at least we know, you know, that something might be happening if they don't call, right, so.
right. So seeing no more questions, I'll let you finish your report if you're not done, and then we'll,
Yeah, no, sense. I'll just highlight a few files that happened in the second and third quarters here in Cumberland County. There was quite a number of search warrants executed by the SKU members, Street Crime Enforcement Units, for drugs. Not only search warrants on residences and vehicles, but also there was a couple targeted traffic stops, and you might have read in the news where we had a car from Ontario traveling down here, and 5 kilos of cocaine were seized from that vehicle. The person was arrested and now in the court process. And I only mention that one is because the 5 keys coming from Ontario, there's a lot before that and a lot after. The main thoroughfare for Nova Scotia here. So we may not have been destined for Cumberland specifically, but we do know where he had been and where he was going. So it's important that to draw attention to that. Recently, you would have read in the news occurrence at the Cumberland Regional Hospital. Physician that drew quite a bit of media attention. You know, one occurrence became 2 occurrences with press releases, and then a 3rd occurrence. So, and that's an Eastern Canada. We've drawn out files from other provinces, so it started here in Cumberland, and time-wise, investigation-wise, that is hours and hours and hours dedicated to that, which draws us away from, of course, other ongoing issues so we do have a Street Crime Enforcement Unit member assigned to that currently, basically full-time. Assault on police officer. This one was, I can speak to this from, I was there. Member stopped a speeding car that there was reports on it traveling through Antigonish, through Pictou, through Colchester, and then it was intercepted here in Cumberland on the side of the road, the 104, kilometer 21. A traffic services member stopped the vehicle, or the vehicle had stopped on its own. The person was sleeping in the passenger seat. The traffic services member got out, woke up the person, woke up the male. The male was cooperative. Got him back to the police car, and things went sideways. The member was, I think it says here, received minor injuries. They were actually quite significant, and he's still off duty. Couple civilian passerbys, one from Oxford actually, is stopped to assist the member. Him and I arrived at the same time. He, being a veteran of the Canadian Forces, he provided first aid to the RCMP member as well as the accused. So they both. So that it was in the media. It didn't draw a lot of attention, but there's a big. It wasn't good. We worked with Colchester GIS on a crew from Wallace area. They were transferring stolen goods between Colchester and Cumberland. And it was one of those things, stolen in Colchester, recovered in Cumberland. They were working the trails system with the stolen goods. Did a search warrant up there and recovered, I think, about $80,000 in building materials. There was certainly a lot more than that, but it wasn't recoverable because they had built structures with the stolen goods. So we did make sure those structures were no longer. Stolen golf carts from Northumberland Links. A number of them went stolen. Recovered in Fort Perry, Ontario. We liaised with Durham Regional Police. They completed a number of warrants and recovered the stolen golf carts. And that was all within a couple days. Like, they get them, gone. Another one you might have heard of is a stolen police vehicle out of Sackville, New Brunswick. Stolen in Sackville, with a shotgun and carbine in it. Came over across the border into our area, went up around the hospital, around here, and then headed back. It was tracked, so of course with the GPS and the live GPS we have on them, we could tell where it was. It was just a matter of catching it and catching it safely. So it was all a lot going on, knowing this person had loaded had firearms in the police vehicle. Spike belted him out here on the marsh, went off the road, and resulted in 16 different criminal code charges. He was remanded. He's still in custody. And that's just an example of there was a lot going on between the Sackville, the New Brunswick radio system, our radio system, patching them together. All of a sudden, we have 25 members on this one car trying to seclude it and get it off the road. Impaired operation, subject blue, 360, 350. Pretty drunk. SUV. He ended up he was in an SUV on the lawn of a property in Highway 4. So got him out, blew 2 samples, 360, 350. Search warrant in Spring Hill on Main Street. 4 arrested, still under investigation. There's two people there that took owners of the firearms that were open. Bert never likes to enter a house and see firearms, so they dealt with it accordingly, and it's still under investigation with the drug trafficking component of that. The ERT team, ERT, as part of our SKU unit, we did 2 warrants at the same time, simultaneous warrants in the town of Amherst. It was a SKU-led initiative. The drug dealers that we were, the search warrants were for, were a county supplier, where they didn't only deal with the town of Amherst. It affected the county, so we said, yeah, we'll go. We'll get the ERT team up. So they did their thing on that house. And it's still boarded up there now. So another thing, so people are often, we arrest them, we like to remand them, but the rules around remand and bail are difficult. The Crowns have a difficult time. You gotta prove to the judge that if you let this person out and about, then they're gonna recommit or not behave themselves. So oftentimes the court will release people on conditions, and often part of those conditions are for that person to have a surety. And a surety is kind of like the jailer that's acting on behalf of the court. So we have to kind of attempt to supervise those people that are out on conditions. So in the second and the third quarter combined, we did about 250 compliance checks. So that means somebody's in Apple River on conditions. So we're gonna drive down there and we're gonna check them at 10 o'clock. But then he knows the police were there at 10 o'clock. So we'll have to hover around the area and recheck them type thing to not that we're trying to catch them, but that's what we're trying to do. We it's a cat and mouse game sometimes, but that's what. So, like I said, 250 times, and I don't have the number of breaches here in front of me. How many times we have breached, but again, another important, timely component to the policing.
And something that isn't really recorded as we might, if you had the one individual, you would punch one complaint for that compliance check and then just keep adding to it. So, you know, of those 250, there's probably only about maybe 20 people or so.
35.
35. So that would be, you know, you might have 35 files for those 35 people, but those checks would just keep adding to that specific person, so you're not generating a new complaint every time you go and check them, right?
So the second and third quarter do catch a lot of the school year. So between January and June, so 3 months of the second quarter, there was 60 school presentations completed at all schools. So that's a total of 60 presentations. And we touched on every school in the county. So that was a big undertaking. It was organized by one person, but then assigned to many different members to get out there and talk about cybersecurity, the bullying, and the, I said cybersecurity, but online dating or what, communications, I guess, for lack of the better words, with unknown persons. So I'll just, if you guys are good with that, I'll just touch on the staffing issues that are going on, or the current staffing, human resources in Cumberland. So Andrew Clark is the staff sergeant. I'm the sergeant, and then Brian Cameron, who was here for a number of years, just recently retired, and Stu has been named as for Brian's replacement. So I'll stay in Spring Hill, do my thing down there. Stu will take the chair in Amherst here, Brian's old chair. General duty, we got 4 corporals. Currently 2 are off duty. However, one of those corporals is going to be retiring next month. So hopefully we can get his replacement in relatively soon. I think we're anticipating at one time it wouldn't be until later next year or mid next year, but it worked out that he'll be gone before the end of the year. So we currently have one out of the 26 constables that are in Cumberland. We have 3 are currently off duty. 1 is light duties. So 3 off duty. 1 is coming to work, but not necessarily in police enforcement capacity. And we have 4 new members coming in, 2 cadets and 2 lateral constables from, they have between 10 and 12 years experience, which is very good whenever we can get somebody with experience, because you avoid the 6 month of kind of the building them up and the training. So it's good whenever they can come here, arrive on the first day of work, get in a car and go work. And that's it. That's everything. Unless there's any more questions.
Yep.
Yes, our constable in Advocate Harbor that was recently sent to be our constable has disappeared, and we're under the impression that he's off on sick leave, and we were wondering if there's going to be any kind of replacement or if there's a timeline for his return to duty in our area. I've had a lot of people, well, he just got here. Where did he go? If you could speak to that.
He arrived in April and then went off duty in June. So now we're in the end of November. I can't speak to when there might be a return, but we're aware he was there for 3 months.
So yes, so the community is concerned that, you know, the coverage for the area might be a little, you know, lax at the moment, and just wondering if there is a replacement or an interim officer going to be stationed there.
Yeah, so whenever somebody goes, let's talk Advocate specific. When a member goes off like that, he still occupies a seat, and we can't replace him. All we can do is promise that we'll be down there. But there's somebody in that position, in that residence.
Okay. So I'll see you more often driving through then, right?
Went down there the other day.
Lovely drive.
It is.
Come the Parsbro way, though.
Oh, I know.
No, thank you. It's just that they
I
have been questioned.
I understand completely. I drove
And
by
I
and saw the
just-
fourth house there, and
They'd like to know. The people like to know what's happening, and
still
I'd like to
always-
be able to tell them.
There's always members that are available, though, to attend to any calls for service that are required, right? Like, as a district concept, you always have, you can draw from other resources within the county to attend there, right?
You'll be there if we need you, is
Stu
what
was
you're
going out
trying
on
to
a
say.
late drive today, and
Yeah,
I didn't catch him before we went out the door, but I was gonna say,
yeah,
go.
Thank
put
you for your
yourself with,
service.
yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Redmond.
I'm going to go back to the reporting the speeding. Do the individuals dial 911 or where do they call?
Just the general
General?
line for
Okay.
Non-emergency line.
non-emergency.
Yeah, because and I think we maybe should have that those numbers advertised, because I know that if you're telling people to report it, they're going to dial 911, and I didn't want to see that be overloaded with.
So in Cumberland County, it's 902-667-3859. And I understand that if that office happens not to be staffed, that it will fail over to one of the detachments where there is a person if it's during the day, and if not, it will fail over to telecoms, correct?
Operational Dispatch Center.
captured. So there's also a number in Spring Hill, 902-597-3779.
And
that-
Oxford's is 447-2525.
There ends my impressive knowledge of police telephone numbers. But
Thank you.
3859 is probably the one that's most familiar and to folks, 667-3859.
You
I
could,
just- yeah, I
they
just-
could Google, and if it probably hasn't changed in a number of years, and it would probably be in a phone book, if they have the phone book still.
No such thing as phone books.
Well,
I just didn't want it out there that people from our conversation here would pick up the phone and dial 911, so I
No,
just
that's
wanted
good.
it noted in the meeting. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Lockhart.
Just a comment on that Calm RCMP, and I was in a meeting yesterday, you were there, Jarrett, and some others, and it's a little complicated when they want the civic address and everything, and I get this, if people are not calling, so instead they yell at us at the grocery store. So, would it be something, I don't know if it's on the RCMP, or maybe if we could, to put a little, release together with all this information, hey, call, here are all the numbers, put it out on social media, and make it well-known, and that may help some. I'm just a suggestion, because that is, we talked about that yesterday, you know, when sometimes people want the civic numbers and they're talking to someone that's not from here, and, you know, you say the elementary school on McGee Street, and, well, what's the civic number? Well, I don't know, well, I can't, you know, I can't go through the complaint. I had that personally happen to me, we talked about that yesterday. And, yeah, and I think just, the other thing, when you do these school, presentations, I think it'd be a really, really good idea to maybe, you know, get a little PR on that, and I've heard about it, I don't have kids in school anymore, grandkids that live here, but that would be something, or even if it was one in Spring Hill, I know I would be happy to go, just to listen in on it. So there's another suggestion. And the other thing was, you know, sometimes with the facts and figures and that, I think what Greg hit on was that if we had the last year's, I know yesterday, I wrote one down because it really stuck in my mind, and I checked it out today, and, you know, Mr. Clark said yesterday, sexual assaults were up 150%. Well, they're up 67%, according to these numbers, so that's not really a true. So I think if we're going to use numbers, we have to, in percentages, sometimes shocking off 150%, I know, ooh. So I was really interested to look at the numbers today, and I added them up while we were sitting here. So that was just my comments, and I really think we all need to work together as a team. If you write team down, it means together, each achieves more. And I really think we need to do that. And I think by making the public more aware of, you know, instead of just complaining about it, to calling, and maybe, you know, maybe if it's a problem, which I believe it's the Nova Scotia government that has put the dispatch system in, it's not the actual RCMP, that maybe there's another problem that has to be addressed there to make it a little simpler. So, anyway, thank you very much for attending today.
No, thank you.
Mr. Harrod.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just pick up on that. We're happy to share whatever the RCMP provides in terms of contact information, you know, regular updating of that. However, we sort of share that on our social media channels and on our website. We're happy to do that. I don't think we want to generate it because it's your information, but we're happy to share it. Second thing that just comes to mind while listening to Councillor Lockhart speak is reporting occurrences. And I know that to some degree there's an online reporting tool with the RCMP. You guys, either of you fine gentlemen, able to speak to that?
Yeah, I don't have the card right in front of me, but there, on the internet, through the RCMP, if you typed it into Google, online reporting, it'll bring you to a page where you put in your complaint, not emergency complaint.
Right.
So a speeder in Wentworth, or what have you. And then, so it's logged into the computer. Whenever the detachment's assistants come in the next day, they open it up and create files from the online report.
So, Stuart, you going to say something?
No, I just, yeah, then they just create the report, and it's assigned down to one of the officers for investigation.
Thank you for that. So thinking about society today, Mr. Chair, and others, much more willing in a lot of cases to sit in front of a computer and actually input something than folks are to, just a comfort level, right? It's just society, than they are to actually make the phone call. So it might be,
It's also a
it might,
very new system.
Yeah.
We're just, it's only been within, I think, the last year that it's just gone online. So it's, yeah, we're still learning the process with it as well.
Mr. Chair, could we ask these gentlemen to maybe follow up with us and maybe give us a one-pager with contacts, including telephone numbers and that how citizens would and others would access that online reporting tool, and we're happy to share it and promote it and do whatever we can to make its use more well-known. So if they could do that, that'd be great.
I see Sergeant McDonald writing something down, so I think we've done it.
We'll get her.
Seeing no other questions, I have one just quick question. On your checkups, when they're out, and you find a breach, what is the protocol there? Depends on the breach.
Depends on what the breach is for. Depends on, you know, if it were a domestic type situation and it was a breach, what could be considered a lower risk domestic then becomes a high risk domestic. And so then it actually starts a whole process where you would have to get Crown approval to release that person, or you'd be possibly remanding them. If it's just something like a curfew and they're not there, you could initiate a breach file and you would give them a court date for the future. It could be somebody that, if you find them committing the breach, they could be arrested and held overnight and that sort of thing until they're not breaching anymore.
Thank you. So no other, oh, sorry, Councillor Fromp.
Just a comment, I've had a few dealings with the RCMP in the last little while, and I just want you to pass on to all your members how professional, kind, and compassionate they can be, and sometimes people forget about that because you guys are doing a really tough job, but I was super impressed with how well members that I dealt with spoke and
Thank you.
did a great job. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. So before we move on, I just want to, oh, we have another one. Mr. Lockhart.
Quick, we were talking about the breaches, and maybe I watch too much TV, but do we use ankle bracelets in Cumberland County?
It's a Crown and court thing. Please, it's a process to get somebody into a bracelet, or an anklet. With probations, court, the Crown, the police only,
Yeah, I know you don't do it,
monitor them.
but yeah.
You know, oftentimes, somebody will have a bracelet on, and they're all GPS censored. If it's tampered with, or they go outside a certain zone, then the security, the people who monitor the bracelets will call the police and say, so-and-so just left that residence, or so-and-so just tampered with that bracelet. But from time to time, we see them here.
Yeah, just seeing from all the things we talked about yesterday and the breaches and and I know it's not you, it's the court, it seems like it would be a less job for you and probably a better job for the community if they use that technology a little bit more.
We get a lot of complaints generated from those type of calls, like there's a tampering or just their batteries wore out and all of a sudden they're not getting a response, right? Because they have to be plugged in. We had one in Colchester on Friday last week. He left court, walked down the street, cut it off and threw it in the ditch, right? And we ended up going and retrieving it out of the ditch and now he's wanted, right? So, you know, it's a good tool in some circumstances.
But if that gentleman or lady did that, and she would definitely be in a big breach by cutting that off and throwing that away.
Yeah.
If you catch up with them, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just think that's a good idea, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Probably wasn't a good candidate for the ankle monitor in the first place. But well, yeah, I think there was a notification there, like a dangerous offender with that person that came out, so probably not.
So before we move on, I thank you guys for being here today and letting us, giving us the information, letting us ask our questions. And we certainly look forward to Sergeant Basalt being full-time here in Cumberland County, and we welcome you, and it's nice, very nice to meet you today. So,
Looking forward as well.
so Section 5, information items. So 5.1, an update on a meeting with the Minister of Justice, and our CAO, Greg Harrett, will lead that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Very, very briefly, Mayor Gilroy and I met with Scott Armstrong, who's the new Attorney General and Minister of Justice, along with a few members of his staff on Friday. It was a bit of an update visit. It was our first visit with respect to the Nova Scotia Comprehensive Policing Review. They're doing a little bit of a roadshow meeting with all municipalities, and so we did that. I think we had a pretty good meeting, good discussion. And we do have some familiarity with the minister, and so that certainly helped. But at a very high level, I passed around a bit of a slideshow that they provided to us. At a very high level, the review heard about issues like visibility, and we hear about that in every conversation that we have with the members of the public and the business community with respect to policing, and it's not just a rural policing thing. But equitable service delivery, consistent access to information. The cost of policing is a big issue, obviously, for municipalities and ultimately for citizens. Civilian oversight is another issue, and the changing nature of crime. We can all recognize that society changes and that the nature of crime and how it's committed changes. So, not to bore everyone with all of the slides, but getting right to the what I believe to be the last one is the foundational changes, and these are the recommendations that are in various stages of implementation and discussion with the Department of Justice. There are 6 of them there. Unified Records Management System, essentially getting all police agencies in the province on one records management platform. I think our friends in Cumberland County are on PROS. Halifax and Cape Breton are on 2 other different systems, Versadex, and I don't remember what the other one is. But the idea is so that in response and in follow-up, that inquiries and information that's entered into the system is available to all police agencies across the province, and that only makes sense. The others, enhanced police resourcing and standards and layered policing, all relate to what the model will look like going forward. And we don't have all of that information yet, nor has the department reached all of its conclusions yet. Suffice to say that along with the new policing standards, the way services will be provided and how municipalities are billed for that service will change. They intend to bring about a consistent level of service across the province, but they intend to change the way that we're billed for it. Currently, we're billed on a per officer basis, following a determination of what our need is. I'm going to hesitate because I can't rhyme off what the words that go with the acronym are, but following a GDPRM analysis, municipalities are then billed on a number of officers. That will change. When we asked whether that would then be billed on an assessment basis, a per capita basis, a geography basis, all of those sorts of bases, the answer was maybe all of those, that there will be a bit of a formula. So the jury's out on that. We don't have that yet. We don't know when that's coming, but we know that it is coming. And I think the one that's probably of most interest to us in Cumberland County, although again we don't have what the costs will be and how it would work, is the deployment of community safety officers and special constables. So a bit of a tiered policing model where the folks who respond to I don't want to minimize any of the work that police does, but the folks who respond to incidents where a fully trained, equipped police officer is required would be fully trained, equipped police officers, but where we can establish presence in communities by using community safety officers, that may be of interest to smaller communities and communities in Cumberland County, quite frankly, where presence is an issue. So early days on all of that, but it's at once encouraging to see some of these changes, and then also a little bit concerning because we really don't know what the financial impact is going to be. We already pay north of $5 million a year for policing, and our capacity to pay much more is kind of restricted. So we're anxious to see how it's all going to turn out. So we'll keep you informed, but that's what we know at this point in time. I don't know if Mayor Gilroy wants to add anything to that. He was in the room as well. So.
One of the big things, Greg, that they referenced was the amount of time police spend attending hospitals. And, you know, sometimes you're there for several hours, a whole shift, waiting for a doctor to see someone or whatever. And I think that's what the minister said the other day, that they'd like to be able to alleviate the frontline people from that task so that they can deal with, in his words, more important things and allow these the layered model to work that into the system to free you guys up. I think was more of his point, you know, and again, if that's, you know, we talked about it again today, and, you know, it's like everything comes perhaps with an increased cost. You're increasing layers and increasing people. One would make that assumption naturally, but the other side of that is, you know, if there was a cost to have, you know, community safety hours, an extra cost to have that and special constables, but the achievable was that it freed up your force to do the important stuff that is what everybody is griping about, versus they're not griping about you sitting at the hospital for hours on end. They're not, you know, they're griping about the fact they don't see you, but they don't realize at the same time that that's where you have to be the way the system is now. And so if the outcome is that we free you folks up for that kind of thing, then I'm all for it, quite frankly. So I'll leave it at that.
Mr. Glode.
Yeah, so just, you know, when I see the term special constable, it generates a little bit of history for me in terms of, you know, just having colleagues and friends of mine who were special constables under the RCMP several years ago. They were at the airport. A lot of them were at First Nations, you know, not Millbrook at the time, but, and what I'm afraid of, and even the term community safety officer, like what, you know, I'm sure you haven't got the information, but it's, as long as the definition and the responsibilities are clear, I think it'll be good, because you know, you heard the term, you know, just growing up, well, you're only a special constable, right? And really, that, you know, where we seem to be working towards getting, and I fully recognize it comes at a cost, but there's work, I think, that we want in Cumberland, that policing be clear in terms of, you know, what you do, where you're at, what you're doing. Yeah, you know, you're sitting hours on end at the hospital. Okay, fine. I mean, everybody sits for hours at the hospital, right? And I think that, you know, to do something else that would, you know, kind of muddy the waters, you know, as to what the roles are, I think we might be getting ourselves into a little bit more trouble, even though it's, you know, it'll alleviate the situation for the front line. But still, to my way of thinking, if you have a special constable, and to me, constable means, you know, something that, you know, if you're enforcing something, then, you know, what do you do? Like, what is your level of responsibility? And I remember a good friend of mine. In fact, my first aid instructor, guys, you know, the rant and rave about first aid, all of that. But he was a special constable at the airport, And so back in the old days, they were, I think the training was half the time. I don't think they had a dress uniform. And, they had a specific responsibility. And then all of a sudden that changed. Like literally with a stroke of a pen, all those individuals disappeared and they became regular members, and there was no, to my way of thinking, there was no clear finish to the whole process. And so I just hope, I'm ranting and raving, sorry, that this is clear, and that, as Cumberland County, we can, we see that, oh, that's what that means. So this is the responsibility, and this is what we're going to pay for in terms of services. So.
Thank you, Mr. Clodine. And certainly, this is very early
Yeah, it's very
stages.
early, yeah.
And so we certainly hope to get a lot more information, but there's two things that we do hope is going to be cheaper for us, is one. Yes, and hopefully we'll get some answers. And I don't think it's a short-term thing. I think we're probably looking at 1-2 years down the road to implement this type of policy. So if there's no other questions, I'll look for someone to adjourn the meeting. Councillor Redmond, meeting adjourned.